your mind wandering peaks around like midday, like noonish. So it's most productive to have something like this in the morning where your thoughts are more constrained in the sense of you're not going to read something and then your mind's thinking about other things, right? That they found that peaks in the kind of midday. So that's almost like it's the area, that's the time where you're the most you can be the most creative, but it's
Mm,
also where you have the most resistance towards almost like staying focused on
yes.
whatever task, you're trying to do at hand. And so they say, the freedom of movement starts low in the morning, peaks midday, goes down again during like the afternoon, and then actually goes up again like later at night.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the Reshape Your Health podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Morgan Nolte, and today we are covering my favorite topic, and that is mental mastery. And with us, we have one of our Zivli health coaches, Dr. Lydia Spirawk. And I love this topic, Lydia. Like this, I'm gonna let everybody in on a secret here. If I were to ever write a book, it would be on mental mastery.
I think you just put it out there. You're gonna
I
have to write a
did.
book. You're
Well,
you're
not
gonna
that.
do it.
I'm manifesting this, but I was thinking about this and I'm very, again, and I'm trying to be in tune with my intuition because that's part of mental mastery. So as I was thinking about this, I thought, what would I title the book? Mental
Hmm.
mastery. That's a nice little iteration. Alliteration, I think is what it's called.
Hmm.
And so I was like, well, I better get the domain. So I own the domain
Oh, wait,
mental
you
mastery.
went and bought it?
Oh yeah, I own the domain mentalmasterybook.com. So in case I ever
That's
needed
awesome.
it, no one else had snatched up that domain. So that's how passionate I am about this is I have a domain for an unwritten book about this topic. So there we have it.
That's
How do you like that
awesome.
intro?
I think that's the best intro, honestly.
Thank you. So I'm kind of curious, like for me, this topic of mental mastery really came about through business. Again, there's a lot of parallels between growing a business, growing a healthy lifestyle, a lot of like the same limiting thoughts and whatnot come up. And the first time that I really felt like I understood the power of mental mastery was when I read the book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich.
Mm.
And you can replace the word rich with whatever you want. Think and grow healthy, think and grow in love, like think and grow wealthy, whatever you want. And that book really changed my perspective on the power of thought and was the first book that I thought really did a good job at outlining not just like why we should be focusing on our thoughts so much,
Mhm.
but some practical how. And that book is actually where the term personal faith formula comes from, which is kind of our master mindset document. So it's interesting. If you haven't read that book, it was written kind of after the Great Depression. And
Mm.
so it's old. It's definitely old. The language is a little bit old, but I finished reading that book and I thought to myself, I could probably like never read another book again in my life and just reread this book
Just
forever.
this one. You'd
Yeah.
probably gain new things from reading it each time you read it.
Yeah.
Things that you missed, and
Yes.
you're like, "Oh, wow, I didn't even think about that."
Yeah. So if people haven't read that book, I highly recommend that book. But mental mastery, I think, is important when we're talking about health because literally every single decision that we make in a day is driven by our thoughts.
Mhm.
And the problem is that only about 10% of, our thoughts are conscious. The 90% are subconscious. And so I think if we don't really understand how to harness the power of our subconscious mind, how to change our subconscious thoughts, we're only operating at like 10% of our capacity.
Right. I
And
was
so
trying
that's
to
the
look up the
difference.
other day, and it said something like it's a very big range, but I saw something saying we have anywhere from 6,000 up to 70,000 thoughts a day. And obviously that's a huge range, but I, even conceptualizing that, that's a lot of thoughts. I mean,
Yeah.
and then if you break it down I did the math and I can't remember what it is now. It's many thoughts, per minute. per second. And you're like, wow, I did not realize how many thoughts I'm having every day.
Well, my first thought there was, okay, a man has 6,000, a
Mm-hmm.
woman has 50,000,
Right.
and a pregnant woman has 70,000.
Right. True. Very true.
Sorry, men. Sorry, men. It's quality over quantity though. Maybe they just have higher quality thoughts, and so they don't need to think as many as we do.
Sometimes I don't wish I had as many thoughts.
I wish.
My
Yeah.
husband is very much close to the 6,000 and I'm like, 120. And we always talk, we're like, could we survive in the other person's brain for a day? And I don't think we could. I just have constant thoughts in my
Yeah.
brain and it would be so noisy for him. And
Yeah.
his brain, I'd be like, hello, is anyone home?
They'd be like, echo,
Right.
echo, echo.
Right.
Oh, I love it. So this concept of mental mastery, I wanted to kind of bring up like, why do I talk about this so
Hmm.
much? Because you will, like I say you, not as you, Lydia, but anybody listening,
Hmm.
you will never be able to lose weight and keep it off without mental mastery.
Hmm.
Like we have got to harness the power of our thoughts because those drive your actions and your actions drive your habits and your habits drive your results. And
Hmm.
I didn't have to be a weight loss coach very long to realize like the strategy is only half of the coin. The
Hmm.
mindset is the other half. And if you don't have the mindset, the strategy falls on deaf ears. Someone's not going to be consistent. They're going to constantly be relying on you to like check their food logs and tell them what to do and hold them accountable. And it's like, my goal is for you to not need me.
Hmm.
My goal
Right.
is for you to be completely self-sufficient and learn how to self-coach. And I think in our traditional medical model, that's totally backwards, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
like the medical provider is not paid if the patient does not need them. And it's like, well,
Right.
we've structured our business model accordingly so that we can support you when you need us to, but you don't have to need us, you know?
Right. I
Um,
think the thought is, the physician's the expert, but with this different way of thinking, it's like, no,
yeah.
you're the expert of your
Yes.
own life.
Yes.
We're a tool to help, but you know yourself better than anybody.
Yes. And that
Hmm.
everybody knows that that is true.
Hmm.
But I think that it's so interesting how easily we doubt ourselves.
Hmm.
And I had mentioned on a podcast episode recently that I had a mindset coaching call from the communication program that I was in,
Hmm.
and that was something that came up. She said, I'm sensing in you from your language that you don't trust yourself.
Hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, you're right. In certain areas of my life, I don't trust
Hmm.
myself. Why is
Hmm.
that? And so
Right.
then that definitely took some unpacking. And I think a lot of that goes into criticism from other people.
Hmm.
Not always criticism, but
Hmm.
doubting from other people, second guessing from other people. And so I think when we're talking about weight loss, I think so many people, we're starting a new year. Like this is airing,
Hmm.
like, by the way, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, 2024. Woohoo.
Even though we're recording in, December of 23, Happy New Year, everybody. But so many people have weight loss goals, right?
Hmm.
But there's doubt in them. There is fear in them that they're going to fail or that people are going
Hmm.
to criticize them or that people are going to judge them. There is so much in the way
Hmm.
of their potential, all of it internal, all of it internal.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's what I want to unpack. Like,
Hmm.
why? How do we help people just get over that? Get over
Hmm.
the fear of judgment, the fear of rejection, the fear of missing out, the fear of criticism, because they're not productive. And
No.
and I think that like when we're talking about mental mastery, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about your ability to choose your thoughts, your ability first of all, to be cognizant of your thoughts, to be
Hmm.
aware, to be presently aware and in tune with your thoughts, which requires you to be presently attuned and aware of your feelings.
Hmm.
Don't you think? Like, I know for me,
I
it's so much easier to identify like a feeling and then backtrace it to the thought.
that's often what I do. Yeah. I think the cues for your feelings and your emotions are um much more external. But it's also internal, like you can feel it, right? You can feel, you can feel your blood pressure raising,
Yeah.
something kind of sets you off. And I think that those emotions and those feelings allow you to become aware. Like that's what allows you to become aware in the moment. And then I backtrack too. And then I'm like, ooh, what caused me to get to this point? And that's the thought that we're talking about. And that's what needs to be harnessed and tweaked and modified so that whatever action you're wanting is what you truly want.
Yes, because I think a lot of
Hmm.
people are manifesting things they don't want because they're constantly thinking about what they don't want.
Right,
Well,
right,
proves the law of attraction right there.
right.
I think when I'm thinking about a limiting thought,
Hmm.
something that needs untangled, I'm thinking about like a ball of yarn in my
Hmm.
brain and a little thread sticking out. And
Mm,
that thread sticking out might be the emotion that I'm feeling.
mm,
So if I'm feeling really anxious about something, I'm pulling
hmm.
on that thread and I'm untangling that anxious thought. And
Hmm.
I'm getting to like the root of it so that, okay, it's just a line. Everything is
Right.
fine. Nothing is tangled anymore. I think I also think of the analogy of a garden. So
Hmm.
if we're trying to grow a healthy lifestyle, all of the weeds in the garden are the limiting thoughts.
Mm,
And if you have so many weeds in your garden, you can't grow healthy plants because
right.
they take the nutrients, they take the energy, they take the sunlight. But if you are a good gardener, you pay attention to those weeds and you pick them when
Hmm.
they're small.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of the goal of mental mastery is to find your own mental weeds and develop
Mm.
the skills to pull them up before they have the chance to take root and choke out the good things that you're developing in your life.
Oh, naps.
Were you in a sorority that snapped too?
I wasn't, no, but I was just a thing in our family. We'll snap.
In my sorority, I was in Gamma Phi at Lincoln,
Hmm.
which I was in it, but also like I was like the worst sorority girl ever. I'm sorry if anyone listening was in my sorority because I would like take night classes or teach a night lab to like get out of Monday night dinners because I'm like, if
Right,
I don't have to dress up, I won't. And
right.
I'm like, why am I dressing up on a Monday night? Like this is
It's a Monday.
the Monday for Pete's sake. I'm not going to put makeup on and dress up. I'll just go to a different class. Anywho, I was in Gamma Phi and we would always snap. So if we liked something, instead of like clapping, we
Yeah,
would
you'd snap. That's
it was
funny.
silly. Anywho, I'm glad that you like that garden analogy. But when we're talking about limiting thoughts, I mean, so many people struggle with this and they're not
Hmm.
reaching their potential and they're a shell of what they can be. And
Hmm.
they know it, but they don't know what to
Hmm.
do about it.
Right.
And so I think I just wanted to bring this topic to mind, especially in light of the new year when people are thinking about maybe you're thinking about joining Zivli, maybe you're thinking about, getting healthy on your own or doing something else, but I really wanted to encourage people don't neglect this side of
Hmm.
the weight loss coin because this is the fun part. Like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, I think so my cousin, I talked about her in another episode recently. She's lost quite a bit of weight. I think she said like 50 pounds.
Wow,
And
that's awesome.
yeah, yeah. And I said, you're looking awesome. First of all, how are you feeling? And she's
Hmm.
like, I feel so good. I said, what's better, the physical weight loss or the
Mm.
person you've become along the way to do it?
Hmm.
And she's like, probably equal. She said, it feels so good to know that I have been consistent and to know that I have been exercising and to develop that self-confidence in my ability to follow through and do what
Hmm.
I say that I'm going to do.
Hmm.
And so I think that so many people are chasing a feeling that they
Hmm.
attribute to the weight loss and they miss the fact that it's not the pounds that they lose that's going to give them that feeling. Because if it were, let's do this experiment, Lydia. Let's go put on a 25-pound backpack or a 50-pound backpack and
Right.
let's walk around our driveway for like 5 minutes. Okay.
Right.
And then let's take that off and let's see, am I more confident? Am I more joyful? Am I more peaceful? No, you just
Right.
took off a 50-pound backpack. That
Right.
changed your external body. That didn't
Hmm.
change your internal mind. So the feelings
Hmm.
that people attribute to losing weight are all already accessible to them in their mind.
Right.
And that's what I want to really emphasize to people is the power is already in you
I
to
think
feel how you want to feel.
that's interesting, especially going into, the new year and resolutions. And, you know, I think people go into the new year with the best of intentions to set a resolution to start doing something or to stop doing something, but they're missing the key component of mindset. And that's why I think so many resolutions end up falling apart, because we're missing that mindset, and I think that's what is so great about Zivli is there's just so much mindset work with our program that is not in a lot of other programs related to health. And that's the key. I was talking with my mom the other day, and we were saying, we were just chatting, and I said, Mom, it's not even, yes, the physical things you're doing, those are important. They're important, we need to be aware of them. I said, but it's up here. You have the power to control this. How do we do that? Right? How, and it's going to look different for everybody.
It is. Yeah.
How to control your own mind and your own thoughts. And people are kind of like, how do I even start that?
Well, I think recognize, first of all, awareness, bringing to their awareness that the reason that you've lost the same 20 pounds 5 times in your life might not be a strategy issue. It might be a mindset issue. And we actually teach mindset towards like the latter half of the course. And we've talked about switching that around, but we wanted people to have the right strategy in place first, so that when we got to the mindset stuff, they knew what to be thinking around the strategy.
Yeah.
You need both. You need the right strategy for long-term weight loss, but you need the right mindset. But I think awareness of the importance of mindset is number one. Number two, if you're setting any New Year's resolutions, like one that I'd really encourage you to set is a daily mindset routine, but adopting this growth mindset that growth is the goal. The goal is not to lose 20 pounds or lower your A1C. Growth is the goal, because whenever growth is a goal, like if growth can be a core value in your soul, you can't be discouraged when things don't go your way.
Right.
You just recognize that, oh, it was a lesson learned. I either get the outcome that I wanted or the lesson that I needed. This time it was a lesson, not the outcome. So I think focusing on that is really key too when we're getting started.
So my question for you off of that is, if someone said, okay, that's what I'm going to do, here's the but how do I say growth is going to be the goal? How do I make that okay in my mind that, yes, I may have in the past viewed it as a failure, but I didn't fail, I'm growing. How do you put that into practice? Like what tips do you have?
Well, the first is our start daily meeting agenda. And that's like in the onboarding lesson. By the way, when this airs, our enrollment opens in just a few days. So January 9th. So people can get access to this January 9th. But that really goes into, say, your personal faith formula or your affirmations. That's kind of the master mindset document that says, who is the future version of yourself that you want to be? We have to keep that top of mind, because to break that mental inertia that we talked about in the last episode, repetition is key. And that's something that I really learned from Think and Grow Rich, that book that we talked about at the beginning. Repetition is so important, not just repeating a thought rotely, but repeating the feeling. So the reason that we repeat thoughts or affirmations is to elicit a feeling that we want to create. So that's really important, not just to like rotely say affirmations, but feel how you want to feel, because you're going to feel your way there. The T is thankful. So be thankful, like be grateful for every little thing in your life. There's so much around us to be thankful for that we take for granted all the time. Yeah. So if you're kind of ever like stuck in that, like, how do I focus on growth as the goal? Gratitude is the easiest way to shift your vibrational frequency higher. We want to go higher here.
Isn't there something that says you can't experience gratitude and like negativity at the same time, or something like that?
Yep. Yeah, you can't. And if you think about like a radio wave, Lydia, like you cannot be tuned into 97.1 and 103.7 at the same time. You can only tune into one radio frequency at a time. just like your mind. Now, women
Mm-hmm.
multitask. So we can change radio dials pretty quickly. But the point is, yes, you can only tune into one at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
gratitude, appreciation, presence, like that is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So practicing that vibration of gratitude is important. The A are the action items, 1 to 3 a day, right? That really helps people focus their efforts, reduce overwhelm. But the R is to recognize wins. So when we're talking about, well, how do we shift into that growth mindset? How do we develop this mental mastery?
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing your wins is a discipline. It is because we're so focused, as we've talked in a past episode, on focusing on the gap. We have to
Mm-hmm.
retrain our brain to focus on the gain. Every single little thing counts.
Yep.
So focusing on your wins, both scale, non-scale victories, biometric, measurements, whatever, emotions, how you're responding to your spouse, how you're self-talking. Were you
Mm-hmm.
consistent? Did you do what you said you were going to do? This is retraining your brain.
Mm-hmm.
The T is the
Mm-hmm.
thoughts and obstacles. So, of the action items that you set for the day, are there any thoughts or obstacles that might get in the way of you not reaching it? And if so, how can we make a plan for that? So, I think the first thing is just really adopting a morning mindset routine. I like this done in the morning because that's your brain is very receptive to new ideas in the morning. Um, Also, it's not clouded with a bunch of other stuff from the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's like putting on your glasses, putting on your morning mindset routine is a really great way to develop mental mastery, but we must be consistent. And that's why that morning mindset routine is the very first habit in the Zivli habit
Mm-hmm.
hierarchy. Because if you can be consistent with something that takes you like 5 to 15 minutes, it's free, it takes
Mm-hmm.
zero physical activity.
Mm-hmm.
If you can be consistent with that, it's going to be a lot easier for you to be consistent with any other habit that you're trying to implement. Plus, you are training your brain. So it's kind of like you have to give your brain instructions because your
Mm-hmm.
brain will do what you tell it to do. But a lot of people are telling it what, what not like the opposite of what you
Right.
want. So we have to train our brain.
You probably came across a study at some point too. There's a study about mind wandering, and so
Uh-uh.
they did it with it's like 150 students. I thought it was a UK study, and they looked at um, I think they were sent text messages or something on their phone, and then they had to answer a question about like if whatever was sent made them think about something different or if it made their mind wander essentially.
Oh,
um,
interesting.
and so they were looking at like this freedom of movement and thought, and they found that um, your mind wandering peaks around like midday, like noonish. So it's most productive to have something like this in the morning where your thoughts are more constrained in the sense of you're not going to read something and then your mind's thinking about other things, right? That they found that that peaks in the kind of midday. So that's almost like it's the area that's the time where you're the most you can be the most creative, but it's
Mm,
also where you have the most resistance towards almost like staying focused on
yes.
whatever task you're trying to do at hand. And so they say the freedom of movement starts low in the morning, peaks midday, goes down again during like the afternoon, and then actually goes up again like later at night. So it's kind of this big curve. I just thought it was interesting, and how thinking about how that relates to when you should have a mindset routine or when you should um you know, maybe creatively, it's best for you to journal during, at night, right? So if the two peaks are of creativity is noon and 8 o'clock at night, that might be the best time to get everything out of your brain. But it's best to start your day when your thoughts are more constrained and you're reading something that is going to, activate that area of your brain that's setting you up for the next step, and it goes into that priming again. So I thought it was very
Right.
interesting. Yeah.
That is fascinating.
Is
Where
that
did you
really
come across?
interesting?
Yes, where did you come across that?
Oh gosh, it was some NIH article. I'll I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
Oh, that is awesome. I love that. And I think that that's
Yeah.
a really good evidence of why it's important to do this in the morning
Mhm.
if you can at all.
Mhm.
I know some people think their mornings are hectic.
Mhm.
I get it. You're getting kids up on off to school, but like, can you get up 15 minutes earlier?
Right.
Can you just carve out just a
Right.
little bit of time for yourself? And
I
I
think part of
know,
that
oh, go
goes to
ahead.
the nighttime too. It's like they
Mhm.
think that it's the morning that's the issue, and it's like, well, let's backtrack even more. Let's set up your morning success by tweaking something in the evening.
Yeah.
And so it's less about the morning stressful. It's you're not set up for success in the morning because of something that evening.
Yeah, and that's perfect. Can you pack
Hmm.
your kids' lunches the night before? Can you
Right.
go to bed? Can you wear blue light blockers? Like, how can we get you to sleep better so that you have more energy? Like,
Hmm.
this is obviously we're pretty obsessed with
Right.
with coaching people on how to improve their health. But the other way that I like to think of this, Lydia, is it's a like muscle. Your brain is an organ,
Mm-hmm.
just like your skeletal muscles are organs. We're working out our glutes to get these,
Hmm.
big glutes, the peach emojis or whatever you want to. Or perhaps like you're just like me and you're like, I don't really care about that. I just want good insulin sensitivity. Like
Right.
that's why resistance training. But your brain is an organ too. And we have
Hmm.
to work our brain with mental work, not just, I think when people think about like mindset work or mind work, they think about games.
Hmm.
They think about like,
Hmm.
um, oh, like Sudoku or like you know, mental clarity games, mental
Hmm.
focus games, things to sharpen their intellect,
Hmm.
learning a new musical instrument, learning a new language. Like, yes, that is exercising your brain. That's
Yeah.
so good. But we want to train the brain too.
Hmm.
So I think that it's almost like there was oh, I forget. It was Marissa Peer, I believe, wrote the book, and I think it's called I Am Enough. And
Hmm.
that's one that I referenced a little bit in our mindset ones. And she uses the analogy of a wild stallion. And she's like, your subconscious mind is like a wild stallion. And most people go through life with this horse in their mind that they have no idea how to control. And
I
our
would have
job,
no idea how to control an untamed horse.
right? Right. It takes skill, it takes
Right.
practice, it takes intention, but you
Hmm.
can do it. And then once you have the tamed brain, man, you can really go places on that
Hmm.
stallion. You are powerful. Like it's kind of like you, I don't know if it was in this episode or another one, maybe the last bit of the last episode. You're like, okay, there's all these thoughts, and then they kind of come
Right.
together in this ball of energy that you can direct forward.
Hmm.
That's what we want to learn how to do with our subconscious mind. And a beautiful example of this was in office hours this week. I was touching base with one of our members, and I said, how's it going? And she's like, great. Like she's maintained a 50-pound weight loss, but she was struggling to get 7 hours of sleep. And I said, okay, what's going on? She said, I'm having racing thoughts in the middle of the night. I wake up and I think about all the things I have to do for work and for family because it's the holidays. There's
Hmm.
just more
Yeah.
things on a to-do list. And I said, have you tried kind of just like what you said? Have
Hmm.
you tried journaling at night, getting all of those thoughts out of your brain before you go to bed? Just make a to-do list of everything that's on your mind, but then tell your brain, go to sleep.
Hmm.
Do not wake me up.
Right.
Have you given the direction to your brain to sleep through the night? Or are you
Mm.
constantly worried? Oh, I hope I don't wake up in the middle of the night. I hope I don't wake up.
Right.
Like I'm worried I'm going to wake up. Like give your brain the direction that you want. Be the master of your mind, direct your brain.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that that's something like we have to really be direct with our brain
Hmm.
and how we want to do it. So, what I love learning new stuff, and
I
that was
know.
really cool to learn.
Yeah. No, I think what you just said is very telling. It's like giving you the reins to control your brain rather than your brain controlling you and your everyday life. And it's a totally different way of thinking about it.
I think
I
the
mean,
other thing. Oh, go ahead.
I
Sorry.
was just gonna say, I mean, your brain is it's a very powerful organ, right? Like there's so much we don't even know about the brain. But when you think about it like that, it's like when you're on autopilot, your brain's on autopilot, you're going about your day, and it's like, no, I'm not going to let this organ control me. I'm going to right? I'm going to, you know, I'm going to control the reins, and I'm going to choose how I think and how I act. And Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting way of thinking about it.
And the interesting thing about this member that I just told you about with the sleep issue, she said, I just rewrote my personal faith formula like
Mm-hmm.
last month or something. And I actually took out the line, my thoughts are my responsibility to
Mm-hmm.
control, and I choose to control them.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I said, oh, and lo and behold, you took that line out. You stopped telling yourself that your thoughts are
Right.
controllable and it's your responsibility to control them. And then they're getting away from you. Let's
Mm-hmm.
add that line back in your personal faith formula and
Right.
reaffirm to yourself that you are the master of your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was kind of a fun, but she didn't think about that, Lydia. Like
Right.
if I hadn't have brought that up to her in office hours, those two
Mm-hmm.
pieces probably would not have connected. And I can't
Mm-hmm.
tell you how many times I'm coaching someone and they had this goal, say water, exercise, or protein or whatever.
Yeah.
And they lose their consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, when did that happen? A couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you doing your daily mindset work? Are you reading your personal faith? No. Oh, when did that stop? A couple weeks ago. Oh, isn't that interesting? Like
Everything starts connecting.
the second you stopped your mindset work, you
Mm-hmm.
stopped following through. And I
Yeah.
think a big part that we have to recognize about this mindset side is it creates cognitive dissonance. Like
Mm-hmm.
cognitive dissonance is when your actions and your beliefs aren't lining up. So if you've
Mm-hmm.
ever been doing something wrong, I'm going to use some pretty extreme examples here so that people get the point. If you've ever cheated on a partner, that probably created cognitive dissonance in you because you know it's wrong to cheat on a spouse or a partner,
Mm-hmm.
and you did it anyways.
Right.
Your action and your belief did not line up. If you've ever overconsumed alcohol, that probably created cognitive dissonance. Oh, why did I do that? I know I shouldn't do that, right? Like your action of over drinking went against the belief that that's not healthy for you. And so I think when we're starting this healthy lifestyle journey, sometimes people's actions take a long time to catch up with the beliefs that they want to think.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be really careful with the language that we're using, because if we're saying I'm a healthy person and act accordingly, but they're eating like Lay's chips and they're going to, McDonald's and getting McCafes, and obviously they're not a healthy person and acting accordingly. But if
Mm-hmm.
they keep telling their brain that, their brain is going to reject it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to create discomfort because their beliefs or the thoughts perhaps that they're telling themselves, it's not a belief yet, a thought that they're telling themselves, I'm a healthy person and act accordingly, is not lining up with their actions. That creates cognitive dissonance and it becomes too uncomfortable. And
Mm-hmm.
we just hate that internal conflict. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to resolve that internal conflict. And there's a few ways that we can do that. So the first is to justify the behavior, which is what a lot of people do when it comes to health. Oh, it's not that bad. It's just one bite. I'll just have one. I'm going to ignore my health, until
Right.
they have an
Right.
emergency. Like it's not that bad, but I think a lot of people justify their unhealthy habits until they can't anymore, until
Right.
they're so glaringly obvious that it needs to be addressed. Um, the next one is ignore, which is what a
Mm.
lot of people do as well with their health. It's like, I can't right now. I cannot focus on one more thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the third way to really absolve that cognitive dissonance is to change the action, like change
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
so if the thought that they're saying is, I'm a healthy person and act accordingly, but their actions aren't lining up with that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, you can change the thought, you can change the action, but they have to
Right.
line up. And so I think that's the skill of coaching, is really helping people work with that language that they're telling
Mm-hmm.
themselves to be true. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
like a big mistake that I think a lot of people make starting this mindset work, is they aren't using the right kinds of language. And
Mm-hmm.
then they're creating too much cognitive dissonance. And then they're like, screw it. This isn't working, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Right.
So that's a
It
big red flag for me.
it's interesting, you breaking down what that means and what that looks like. It kept bringing me back to the mental inertia that you were talking about in
Yeah.
the last episode, and I keep thinking about this cognitive dissonance, and there's this discomfort that comes about, and that constant discomfort internally, again, I just view it as this ball, like it's this energy, this buildup. And then I think people get to the point where they're so stressed, and they have this energy inside of them. And I feel like that's a sign of something. We need to switch something, right? We need to take that energy and then put it into an actionable step, and so that might be a sign where things are askew, right? You have that cognitive dissonance, you can feel this energy building. Okay, so now let's take it and then move it somewhere else into something that's productive.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good way to say it. I think a lot about like intuitive eating. I don't know if this
Mm,
is kind of like a little subject change, but like when we're talking about mental mastery and intuitive eating,
mm,
I think that a lot of people, like, it's kind of popular right now. What is intuitive
mm-hmm.
eating? It's like everyone probably has a different definition of it.
Sure.
My definition is like listening to your body and eating what your
Mm-hmm.
body wants. But the problem is, especially if people have insulin resistance, they want a lot of carbs, they want a lot of sugar,
Mm-hmm.
that perpetuates the problem of insulin resistance and makes weight loss harder.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're really good at intuitive eating, if you have
Mm-hmm.
like normal satiety signals and normal hunger signals, I think that's one of the best approaches. I just think most people's hormones are too far off, that their brains are getting the wrong signals on what they actually want and need. But like,
Totally.
don't you? I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot about that, because I see like people on Instagram, these intuitive eaters, and like, I'm having an Oreo today because that's what I feel like. And I'm like,
Right.
good for you.
Right.
I'll talk to you in 20 years.
Right.
Um, and it's nothing against Oreos, but like,
Right.
really, I think that we have to harness that, like, our reasoning minds to be like, is this what is truly in my best interest?
Mhm.
Or is
Mhm.
this a short-term craving? Like, all of this is part of mental mastery, and like
Mhm.
what about like being present when we're eating, Lydia? Like,
Oh my gosh, that's
holy
huge.
cow. That's like a whole nother can of worms, like
Oh
mindless
yeah.
eating, stress eating, emotional eating. All of that is signs that you don't have mental mastery.
Mhm.
And
It's
my hand up, like, here, like, I
oh
still
yeah.
struggle with this.
I struggle with being present when I eat. I also, my husband's a very fast eater, and I get really stressed when I eat with him. Sometimes because I'm like, oh my gosh, he's eating fast and it makes me want to eat fast. And then I'm like, Lydia, this is your opportunity to recognize that. Like he eats fast,
Mhm.
and that's okay. I'm not going to eat fast because it doesn't make me feel good for a variety of reasons. But yeah, it's being present as you're eating. I think we're so used to like eating on the go, and then
Yes.
we make a quick meal, and then we got to eat, and we got to go, and like it's just this constant go 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 go. Um, and I think intuitive eating, mental mastery, there's so much overlap with the present moment. And we've talked about that before, but we don't live in the present at all, and which is so sad because it's like that is what we're living, right?
Yeah.
We are living in the present moment, but we're not. We're either mentally, like we're physically living in the present moment, but mentally we're living in the past or we're living in the future. And
Hmm.
so I think that's often what makes this mental mastery, this intuitive eating so challenging for people, because they're not presently focused on what's going on mentally right now.
Yeah. Have you read the
Yeah.
book, The Power of Now, by the way?
I don't think so.
I haven't
Oh,
either, but I hear it's good.
I bet I would like it.
I hear it's good. So The Power of Now, and from what I understand, when you're reading it, it makes you be
Hmm.
present. So like,
Mm.
I don't know. But I think that's also the power of like breath work and
Hmm.
meditation.
Yeah.
And like, there's tools for developing mental mastery.
Hmm.
Meditation, breath work, there's different forms of therapy. Journaling, I think, is one of the
Hmm.
most powerful ways to improve mental mastery,
Hmm.
because at least for me, Lydia, when I'm journaling, it's a psychomotor skill, right? So we have
Hmm.
to think and we have to use our body, and there's less wiggle room in your mind. You're using
Hmm.
more of your mental bandwidth just to journal through your thoughts.
Hmm.
Also, I write slower than I think. And so
Oh,
it
yeah.
forces me to slow down my thinking, such as like meditation does too. And I
Hmm.
think when we do that, we can really access deeper levels of thought, like
Yeah.
when we quiet our environment. And I think that goes into like other barriers to mental mastery. Um,
Hmm.
it's just noise. Like,
Yeah.
holy
Hmm.
cow, I think somewhere in scripture, it's like, God speaks in a still small voice. I think
Hmm.
that's true. I mean, I
Yeah.
I crave that. I don't know about you, but I crave
Hmm.
silence. I crave
Hmm.
stillness. And I think in our fast-paced world of technology and, we always have our phones. There's
Hmm.
always, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest,
Right.
podcasts, like there's
Right.
entertainment at our fingertips all the time. And that's a lot easier and a lot more entertaining, frankly,
Hmm.
than just breathing and closing your eyes or going for a walk without your phone. And it's like,
Hmm.
but when we do that, we tap into our higher self, the God within us that helps
Hmm.
and like improve and sharpen our intuition.
Hmm.
That's where we dig for understanding and wisdom and insight. I
Hmm.
don't know about you. I've never like come away from like Instagram or Facebook and like, oh, that was really good insight.
Right.
Um,
No.
maybe one time I did see a quote on Instagram once that was like, when you're judging someone, you're either experiencing the feeling of superiority or inferiority, and neither honors God. And I
Mm.
really like that. So, sometimes there are some inspirational quotes, but normally it's the silence where I grow. And I think
Hmm.
like that's kind of true, like in gardening, like a little bit.
Hmm.
Like you have to
Hmm.
work, you have to plant the seed, you have to pull the weeds, but you don't necessarily have to make the plant grow. It just is. You have to let it be, and
And
support it with the right environment.
I think that's so interesting too, because for coaching, one of the best things you can do in coaching is be silent.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's really hard, even for me, because as a physical therapist, I feel like we're so chatty with our patients, like we're just constantly chat, chat, chat,
Right.
chat, chat. And so, um, when you're coaching someone, it's that silence where they might discover something about themselves, or that's what allows them to be vulnerable. Um, so as a coach, the silence is huge. I think sometimes though people are uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable with the silence because that is when that growth happens, and people are resistant to that, and so sometimes it makes you wonder, do we have all this external noise and chatter because we just don't want to deal with the internal stuff that we need to deal with?
Mhm.
I
I
don't
think
know.
so. I was
Mhm.
thinking about a snow globe too, as you were
Mm.
talking about this, and it's like, I think a lot of us are like a snow globe that's shaken up
Mhm.
in our everyday world, and
Mhm.
all of those, like, I would say, like, the wisdom, the insight, the understanding that we need to continually develop mental mastery is like the beautiful Christmas scene inside the globe.
Mhm.
And we
Mhm.
can't see it if we're always shaken up. But if we're
Right.
still and we let those thoughts settle, then
Mhm.
we get that wisdom and insight.
Yeah. I even think too, you know how snow globes have like the music on
Yeah.
there? It's like you wind up the music, you shake it, and then it's like, "Oh, I can't even hear the music. There's too much going on." And then you let everything settle and it's like, "Oh, now I can hear the music."
Mm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's a good
like
way to
that
put it
example.
too.
Actually, speaking of snow globes, I'm so sad. A couple
Oh,
weeks ago, I unpacked all my Christmas ornaments, and back is just a fun story. Back in the day, like I was probably, I don't know, 10 years old. I went into I went with my friend and her parents. We went into downtown Chicago, and have you ever been to the Walnut Room in Chicago during Christmas
I don't
time?
think I've ever been to Chicago.
Oh my gosh,
I know.
Chicago's the best city. You have to
Yeah.
visit. So Christmas time in Chicago is just a whole nother level of just fuzzy, warm Christmas feeling. So we'd go to this walnut room, this beautifully decorated room inside of what used to be Macy's, but now it's called something different. Um, But anyway, we sometimes Christmas shop. And one year I saw all these snow globes and I said, oh my gosh, I have to buy a snow globe for everyone in my family. So I bought a snow globe for everyone in my family. And, my mom has all of them, but one in particular that was mine. And I loved it. It reminded me of kind of what we're talking about. It's this it's a small little church and there are some trees kind of by it and it plays Silent Night and it was beautiful. The outside was wooden. I went to unpack all my Christmas stuff and I start pulling things out and I'm like, why is this wet?
Oh
The snow
no.
globe broke at
Oh
some point and
no.
it was bubble wrapped and everything. I know, and the snow globe broke and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this a metaphor for this Christmas season?
Did
I
you
know.
order a new one yet?
I don't know. I couldn't find a name on it. I have no idea. I mean, and it was 20 years ago that I got the snow globe, so I don't even know. That particular one probably doesn't exist anymore. So I gotta do some research or something.
Okay, well, don't research too hard because that'll be something that I give to you.
Right. A Silent Night snow globe.
For real though, I haven't ordered your Christmas present yet. So, don't do that. I'm
That's
really
so
bad at
funny.
like keeping secrets too. Everyone
Right.
always knows what they're getting from me for Christmas.
That's
So
so
yeah, don't
funny.
search too hard. Thank you for giving me that idea.
Right?
Yeah, good snow globe story. A side story there, but in all reality, I think if we're talking about the benefits of mental mastery,
Mhm.
in my opinion, it's just feeling good.
Mhm.
It's feeling at peace. It's
Mhm.
feeling content. It's feeling like there's nothing to
Yeah.
worry about.
Even during the hard stuff or the
Yes.
hard times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that's honestly like that's where we grow the most
Mhm.
is in the hard
Mhm.
times. That's where we become tough and resilient. And so
Mhm.
I think showing gratitude for the hard times is really important in
Mhm.
in in the aspect of mental mastery. But I think always keeping that like perception that like we're spiritual beings, like everything will be okay. Everything
Right.
one like affirmation that I've always liked is everything has been
Mhm.
okay. Everything
Mhm.
is okay. Everything always will be okay, even through the
Mhm.
hard stuff.
Right.
So, that was kind of what I wanted to cover today on mental mastery, just to kind of like bring it to people's attention,
Mhm.
talk about some practical things that they can do, maybe meditation, maybe journaling, creating like their health vision statement.
It'd be interesting too with the meditation
Mhm.
alongside what we kind of talked about with like the start stay meeting agenda and the time in which you do it. I'm sure there's some study out there about is meditation best like in the morning because your
Mm.
mind's the quietest, but is there also a skill set in doing it during the busy times of the day to work on that muscle of quieting your mind? Oh,
That's when I feel like it'd be most beneficial for me. Like
yeah,
maybe like around the noon hour, if you can
right.
habit stack something, because I've
Mm-hmm.
had a goal of meditating for I don't know how long, Lydia. It's
Mm-hmm.
just I think I'm just it's something that I haven't mastered yet,
Mm-hmm.
especially from a consistency standpoint. But I think if I
Mm-hmm.
could figure out a habit stack way to go about it, like after I eat lunch, I meditate for 5 minutes. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just very inconsistent about it.
Do you, before you start kind of the next chunk of your day, normally is your computer shut or is it open? Like if you're finishing your lunch,
Hmm. I don't know. I think it depends. Probably normally shut at this point.
because for my mind went to, okay, I'm done eating lunch. Before I open my laptop,
Mm.
I'm gonna meditate, even start like a minute.
But I
I'm gonna
like
take,
that. It's even more granular.
right,
Yeah. I
right.
love granular.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like you're setting that boundary of I can't start the second half of my workday until I meditate for 1 minute, 5 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah. I
Food for
think part of
thought.
me too is I'm a mover. Like,
Mm,
and so walking meditation is great, but
mm.
then I get distracted.
I get
Like
distracted.
I'm like, oh, look at that bird, or look at the
Right,
sky, or what a beautiful day, or it's cold outside. I want to go back inside.
right.
Or, man, this basement is kind of dingy, like if I'm walking downstairs. So I think for me, like it does work better if it's a silent, but like we've been talking about, the brain is a muscle. Attention is a skill.
Yeah.
And so paying attention to my breathing and my breathing only, that's just a skill that I would like to develop more. So that's my action item this week. There we go. Thanks, coach.
Woohoo!
I'm going to do it. And I really encourage everyone to like think through some of the action items that we talked about on how you can improve mental mastery, even if it's, 1 minute of meditation before you open your laptop after you eat lunch. That's my action item for this week. I think the other thing that I want to leave people with is the 4 nons, which I really like to practice. It's non-attachment, non-resistance, non-reaction, and non-judgment. And if you can just pick one for this week, like I'm going to practice non-reaction this week, and then check and see how many times you snap at your husband or raise your voice at your kids, or your heart skips a beat when your kids don't do something right. Like all of those are opportunities to practice non-reaction. Or if you're feeling, if you want to practice non-attachment, feel your feelings for the week. Anytime you're disappointed, anytime you're fearful, anytime you're worried, anytime you're sad, you have an attachment to a thought creating that emotion. That's a fun one. That one's always a work in progress. Or non-judgment. Like anytime you catch yourself, you're like, oh my gosh, like, have I gained weight? Judging yourself, or have they gained weight? Judging other people. Like, man, let's cut that one.
I love these 4 nons. When I
Right.
learned about this, it was life-changing for me.
Yeah.
My daughter is not a good car driver. Like she just screams and cries, and yeah, she just does not like it at all.
Oh,
And I used to get so anxious anytime I was driving
right.
anywhere with her, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I know she's going to scream her head off. I'm going to start being anxious. My anxiety goes up, people on the road are going to make me more mad. And when I learned about this, she starts crying, and I'm like, that's okay. She's
I'm not
crying.
attached
I'm not
to
attached to how she's
she's
reacting.
behaving.
Right, right. And that has been so life-changing for me.
Or I'm going to choose to not react to the
React to
crying.
it. Right,
Yes,
right.
it's
It would be so
huge.
quick for me to snap, or then let's say I get a phone call from someone, and my attitude is not wonderful because I'm
Yep.
I'm reacting to how she's being, and then
Yep.
I'm putting that energy, it's normally onto my husband, but it's way better now, and this stuff works.
It
I'm
works.
telling
And that's
you.
the benefit. Like you just feel better. And like that's the big thing. It's not just about losing weight, it's about gaining health. And that includes
Yeah.
mental health and emotional health and spiritual health. It's all tied together. We're here
Mm-hmm.
for all of it. So this week I want you to try to challenge yourself to just kind of pick one area that you can optimize, one area where you can grow in mental mastery. And over time, because it does take a long time, it's almost like a road that you're on, but you don't quite know the destination.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can kind of just look around and enjoy the ride, it's good enough.
Yeah,
And then,
exactly.
and then it kind of like you manifest things along the way. And
Mm-hmm.
you can enjoy that along the way. But there is no destination. Like you just have to enjoy the ride on this. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right. Thank you, Lydia. I appreciate your insights in this discussion, and I hope to have you back on the show.
Me too. It's been fun.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.